"Don't drink that wine," a black single-dad janitor yelled. The CEO's next move exposed a dark secret. A black single father, a corporate gala, a CEO about to drink poisoned wine. What Marcus Hayes shouted across that crowded ballroom on a Friday night in December wasn't just a warning. It was the moment that would unravel a murder conspiracy years in the making. A conspiracy that would have succeeded if a janitor hadn't noticed one detail everyone else had missed. This is the story of how one man's courage to speak up changed 6 lives forever. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Marcus Hayes had been a janitor at Titan Pharmaceuticals in Philadelphia for 8 years, working the evening shift that started at 6 p.m. and ended at 2 in the morning. At 44, he'd built a life of quiet routine and fierce dedication to his 12-year-old son Jordan, who he'd been raising alone since his wife Shanice had died from breast cancer when Jordan was 4. The life insurance money had been enough to buy their small row house in West Philly and put some away for Jordan's future, but Marcus continued, working because he believed in the dignity of honest labor, in showing his son that every job mattered if you did it with pride. His supervisor called him the best janitor they'd ever had. His co-workers respected his work ethic. And for 8 years, Marcus had moved through the gleaming hallways of Titan Pharmaceuticals with methodical competence, invisible to most of the executives who rushed past but essential to keeping their world spotless and functional. Tonight was different. Tonight was the annual Winter Gala, a black tie fundraiser that Titan threw every December to celebrate the year's achievements and court investors for next year's projects. Marcus normally wouldn't have been there. The event staff handled gala cleanup, but the facilities manager had asked him to cover because 2 people had called out sick. So Marcus had arrived at 7 p.m. in his custodial uniform, keeping to the periphery of the grand ballroom on the building's top floor, emptying trash bins and wiping down surfaces while 200 people in evening gowns and tuxedos mingled and networked and drank expensive champagne. The ballroom was spectacular, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Philadelphia skyline, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over tables draped in white linen, a string quartet playing softly in the corner. Marcus felt out of place, but invisible, which was how he preferred it. Do his job, collect his overtime pay, get home to Jordan, who was staying with Marcus's sister for the night. That plan lasted until 8:47 p.m., when Marcus saw something that made his blood run cold. He'd been clearing glasses from a cocktail table near the bar when he noticed a man in a server's uniform doing something odd. The man was standing at the wine service station, preparing glasses for distribution, and he'd just pulled a small vial from his pocket and added several drops of clear liquid to one particular glass of red wine. Then he'd placed that glass on a silver tray with a small flower arrangement next to it, distinctive from all the other trays. Marcus felt his heart start to pound. He'd worked enough shifts to know the servers, at least by sight, and he'd never seen this man before. Tall, thin, pale skin, maybe early 30s, with dark hair slicked back and an expression of intense concentration as he watched that particular tray. The man was waiting for something, Marcus realized, waiting for someone to take that specific glass. Marcus moved closer, trying to look like he was just doing his job, wiping down a nearby table while keeping the wine station in his peripheral vision. The man with the vial was scanning the crowd, and then his posture changed, became alert. Marcus followed his gaze and saw Dr. Vivian Chen, Titan's CEO, making her way through the crowd toward the bar. Dr. Chen was 52, a brilliant biochemist who'd taken over Titan 3 years ago and had driven the company to record profits with her aggressive development of new cancer treatments. She was petite and elegant in a midnight blue gown, her silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a sophisticated twist, her face animated as she talked with the CFO and several board members who flanked her. Marcus had seen her maybe a dozen times over his 8 years, always from a distance, always surrounded by important people. She'd never looked at him directly. He was furniture to her, part of the building's infrastructure. But now Marcus watched as a server, a young woman Marcus recognized from previous events, picked up the tray with the marked wine glass and headed directly toward Dr. Chen. The man who'd added the liquid to the wine was now melting back into the crowd. But he was still watching, waiting. Marcus's mind raced. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe the liquid was some kind of flavor enhancer or supplement. Maybe Marcus was being paranoid. But Shanice had been a nurse before she got sick, and she'd taught Marcus to trust his instincts about medication and substances, taught him that in hospitals and labs, extra caution could save lives. And something about the way that man had looked around before adding the liquid, the secrecy of it, the specific targeting of one glass screamed danger to Marcus's gut. The server was almost to Dr. Chen now, extending the tray with a professional smile. Dr. Chen was laughing at something the CFO had said, reaching absently for the glass of wine. Marcus didn't think. He just acted. "Don't drink that wine," Marcus shouted, his voice cutting through the elegant murmur of conversation and the soft music. The entire ballroom went silent. 200 heads turned to stare at him. Dr. Chen's hand froze inches from the glass. Marcus felt his face flush with heat, felt every eye in the room judging him. A janitor in a work uniform interrupting the company's most important social event of the year. But he pushed forward, moving quickly toward Dr. Chen, ignoring the security guards who were already moving to intercept him. "That wine," Marcus said, his voice loud enough to carry, but trying to sound calm, reasonable. "Someone put something in that specific glass. I saw a man add liquid from a vial. Please don't drink it." The CFO, a heavy-set white man named Richard Morse, stepped forward with an expression of outrage. "This is completely inappropriate. Security, remove this man from the building immediately." But Dr. Chen held up a hand, her dark eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made him feel simultaneously seen and dissected. "Wait," she said quietly. She looked at the wine glass still on the server's tray, then back at Marcus. "You saw someone tamper with this specific glass?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said. "About 2 minutes ago. A server I've never seen before. Tall, dark hair, white guy in his 30s. He was at the wine station, added drops from a small vial to that glass, then marked the tray with a flower arrangement so it would be identifiable." Dr. Chen's face had gone very still. She turned to the server holding the tray, a young black woman who looked terrified. "Did you pour this wine yourself?" "No, ma'am," the server said, her voice shaking. "It was already poured when I got to the station. They told me to bring it to you specifically. Said it was a special vintage from the cellar." "Who told you that?" Dr. Chen asked. "I don't know, ma'am. One of the other servers. I didn't get his name." Dr. Chen looked back at Marcus, and something passed between them, a moment of decision. "What's your name?" "Marcus Hayes, ma'am. I'm a janitor here. Evening shift." "Mr. Hayes, show me exactly who you saw and where." Marcus led her back to the wine station, aware of the crowd parting around them, of Richard Morse following with several security guards, of the whispers spreading through the ballroom like wildfire. The station was now staffed by a different server, a middle-aged woman Marcus recognized from dozens of events. The man with the vial was gone. "He was right here," Marcus said, pointing to the spot. "He prepared that glass, added the liquid, and put it on the tray. Then he watched to make sure it got to you." "What did he look like exactly?" one of the security guards asked, pulling out a phone to take notes. Marcus described the man in as much detail as he could remember. As he talked, he saw Dr. Chen pull out her own phone and type something quickly. Then she turned to Richard Morse. "Call the police," she said, "and get Dr. Patterson from our toxicology lab up here immediately. I want that wine tested." "Vivian, this is ridiculous," Richard said, his face red. "You're going to disrupt the entire gala because a janitor thinks he saw something suspicious? This is embarrassing." "What's embarrassing is that someone may have just tried to poison me at my own event," Dr. Chen said coldly. "The wine gets tested, the security footage gets reviewed, and we find out who that server was. Now." Her tone left no room for argument. Richard's jaw tightened, but he pulled out his phone and started making calls. Within 10 minutes, the ballroom had been cleared of guests, all of them ushered to a different floor for an unexpected intermission, while the situation was handled. Within 20 minutes, Dr. Laura Patterson from toxicology arrived with a portable testing kit and took the wine glass, handling it carefully with gloves. Within 30 minutes, the head of security had pulled up footage from the ballroom cameras and was reviewing it in fast forward on a laptop. Marcus sat in a chair against the wall, feeling surreal, while Dr. Chen paced nearby and made phone calls, her voice low and urgent. "Found him," the security chief said, pointing at the screen. "There, 8:34 p.m., he enters through the service entrance. No ID badge scan, which means he bypassed security somehow. 8:42, he's at the wine station. 8:43, he adds something to the glass. Exactly like Mr. Hayes described. 8:45, he disappears into the crowd. 8:50, he exits through the same service entrance. No badge scan on exit either. Can you get a facial recognition match?" Dr. Chen asked. "Working on it now," the chief said, already typing. Dr. Patterson approached, her face grave. "Vivian, you need to see this." She held up a tablet showing test results. That wine contained a lethal dose of aconitine. It's a plant-based toxin, extremely fast-acting. Cardiac arrest within minutes of ingestion. If you'd drunk even half that glass, you'd be dead. Before the ambulance arrived, the room went silent. Marcus felt like all the air had been sucked out of his lungs. Someone had actually tried to kill Dr. Chen. He'd actually just stopped a murder. Dr. Chen's face had gone pale, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "How easy is it to obtain aconitine?" "Not easy," Dr. Patterson said, "but not impossible if you know where to look. Wolfsbane plants contain it naturally. It's been used as a poison for centuries. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." "Security," Dr. Chen said, turning to the chief. "I want every person who had access to that service entrance identified and questioned. I want to know who that man was and who he's working for." She turned to Marcus, and for the first time, her expression softened. "Mr. Hayes, you saved my life. I don't know how to thank you." Marcus didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. "Just doing what's right, ma'am." Over the next 2 hours, while the gala guests were eventually sent home with apologies and promises of rescheduling, the police arrived and began a full investigation. Marcus gave his statement 3 times to 3 different detectives. Security footage was copied and analyzed. The server who delivered the tray was questioned extensively, but clearly knew nothing beyond being told to deliver a specific glass to the CEO. And the man with the vial remained unidentified, despite facial recognition searches through every database the police had access to. Dr. Chen spent the entire time coordinating the response, making calls, demanding answers, her earlier poise replaced by controlled fury. Finally, at nearly 11 p.m., a detective named Sarah Morrison pulled Dr. Chen aside for a private conversation. Marcus was sitting nearby, waiting to be told he could leave, and he couldn't help overhearing. "Dr. Chen, I need to ask you some difficult questions," Detective Morrison said. "Is there anyone who would benefit from your death? Any conflicts at work? Any enemies? Anyone who would profit from you being gone?" Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. "There's a hostile takeover attempt happening," she said finally. "Sterling Biomedical has been trying to acquire Titan for the past 6 months. I've been blocking it because their offer undervalues the company and would likely result in massive layoffs. The board is split. Some members want to sell, others support my position. If I were gone, the board dynamics would shift. Richard Morse, our CFO, would likely become interim CEO, and he's been advocating for accepting Sterling's offer." "Would Richard benefit personally from a sale?" Morrison asked. "He'd get a substantial payout, Doctor," Chen said. "We all would. But he'd also be positioned to take a leadership role in the merged company. He's made that very clear in board meetings." Morrison made notes. "Anyone else?" "My head of R&D, Dr. Martin Reeves," Dr. Chen said quietly. He was passed over for CEO when I got the position. 3 years ago. He's been bitter about it ever since. And recently I discovered he'd been falsifying data on one of our key drug trials. I was planning to fire him after the first of the year and report him to the FDA. He knows that. We had a very heated argument about it 2 weeks ago. Did anyone else know about the data falsification? Only the members of our ethics committee, Dr. Chen said. 5 people total, all senior leadership. Detective Morrison looked troubled. Dr. Chen, I'm going to be honest. This looks like an inside job. Someone with access to your schedule, knowledge of the gala, and potentially a motive related to company business. I'd recommend you be very careful about who you trust right now. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. She glanced at Marcus, still sitting quietly nearby, and something seemed to occur to her. Detective, could I have a moment? Morrison nodded and stepped away. Dr. Chen walked over to Marcus. Mr. Hayes, it's late. You should go home to your son. But I'd like to speak with you tomorrow if possible. Could you come to my office at 10 a.m.? Marcus blinked in surprise. Ma'am, I work evening shift. I'm not really supposed to be in the, building during business hours. I'm the CEO, Dr. Chen said with a small smile. I'm making an exception. Please. I'd like to talk with you privately, and I want to thank you properly for what you did tonight. Yes, ma'am, Marcus said. I'll be there. As Marcus drove home through the cold Philadelphia night, his hands were still shaking slightly on the steering wheel. He'd stopped a murder. Someone had tried to kill Dr. Chen with poison, right there in front of 200 people, and he'd been the only one to notice. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion and a creeping anxiety about what came next. The next morning, Marcus dropped Jordan at his sister Denise's house and headed to Titan Pharmaceuticals, wearing the only dress shirt he owned and the slacks he usually saved for church. Security let him in with knowing looks. The story of last night had apparently spread through the building and directed him to the executive floor. Dr. Chen's assistant, a polished young man named Kevin, showed Marcus into an office that was both impressive and surprisingly personal. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek furniture, but also family photos. Plants, books on philosophy and medicine crammed into shelves. Dr. Chen stood when Marcus entered, coming around her desk to shake his hand. She'd traded last night's elegant gown for a tailored pantsuit, but her eyes were tired, like she hadn't slept much. Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming. Please, sit. Marcus sat in one of the comfortable chairs facing her desk. Dr. Chen sat across from him, not behind her desk, but in the other chair, creating a sense of conversation rather than hierarchy. I want to start by apologizing, Dr. Chen said. For 8 years you've been working in this building, and I've never once acknowledged your presence, never learned your name, never thanked you for the work you do that makes this company function. That's inexcusable, and I'm sorry. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. It's okay, ma'am. That's just how things are. It shouldn't be, Dr. Chen said firmly. And it won't be anymore. Not if I have anything to say about it. But that's a conversation for another time. Right now I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, Marcus said cautiously. The man you saw last night. The one who poisoned the wine. Are you absolutely certain you'd never seen him before? He's never worked here? Never been in the building during your shifts? Marcus thought carefully. I've never seen him before last night, ma'am. I'm sure of it. And I've been here 8 years. I know most of the regular faces, even if I don't know names. He was a stranger. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. The police ran the security footage through every facial recognition database they have. Nothing. No hits. Whoever he is, he's either never been photographed for any official purpose, or he's using very sophisticated countermeasures. Professional, in other words. You think someone hired him? Marcus asked. I think someone wanted me dead badly enough to bring in outside help, Dr. Chen said, which suggests planning, resources, and a serious motive. The police are investigating several people at the company, including my CFO and my head of R&D, But investigations take time and I don't have the luxury of waiting to find out if someone tries again. She leaned forward, her expression intense. Mr. Hayes, I know this is going to sound strange, but I'd like to offer you a job. A different job. Ma'am? I need someone I can trust, Dr. Chen said. Someone who's proven they're observant, who has integrity, and who doesn't have any stake in the company politics that might have motivated this attack. The police have recommended I hire private security, and I will. But I'd also like you to be part of my immediate staff. Personal assistant, bodyguard. I don't care what title we use. I just need someone watching my back who I know isn't compromised. Marcus stared at her. Dr. Chen, I'm a janitor. I don't know anything about being a bodyguard or an assistant. You know how to notice things others miss, Dr. Chen said. You know this building and its rhythms. You knew enough about workplace safety to recognize suspicious behavior when you saw it. And most importantly, you risked your job and your reputation to shout a warning when you could have stayed silent. That's the kind of person I need right now. She named a salary that was nearly triple what Marcus made as a janitor. You'd work standard business hours 9 to 5 with overtime as needed, full benefits, including college savings plan for Jordan. And if we catch whoever's behind this and the threat ends, we'll find another position for you in the company if you want it, something that uses your skills and pays fairly. What do you say? Marcus's mind was racing. The money alone would change his and Jordan's lives. But more than that, Dr. Chen was offering him respect, trust, a chance to be more than invisible. Yes, he heard himself say. I'll do it. Good, Dr. Chen said and smiled for the first time. You start Monday. Kevin will handle all the paperwork and get you set up. For now, I'd suggest you go home, spend time with your son, and prepare for things to get complicated. Over the next 2 weeks, things got very, complicated indeed. Marcus started his new position, which officially was special assistant to the CEO, but really meant he was Dr. Chen's shadow, accompanying her to every meeting, every event, every moment of her day. Private security was hired too, a firm that provided armed protection and threat assessment. But Dr. Chen made it clear she trusted Marcus's instincts above anyone else's. You saw what professionals missed, she told him. Don't ever second-guess yourself. The police investigation moved slowly, but steadily. Richard Morse, the CFO, was cleared fairly quickly when his alibi for the night of the gala checked out and financial records showed no unusual transactions that would suggest hiring a hitman. Dr. Martin Reeves, the R&D director, was more suspicious. He had motive. He'd been in the building that night, and when police searched his home, they found books about historical poisonings. But they found no direct evidence connecting him to the mysterious server or to the acquisition of aconitine. The investigation stalled. Meanwhile, Marcus learned his new job on the fly. He attended board meetings, sitting quietly in the corner and watching faces, listening to tone and subtext. He accompanied Dr. Chen to investor presentations, to lab tours, to working lunches. He learned the rhythms of corporate leadership and began to understand the pressures Dr. Chen faced daily. And he noticed things, small things, the way certain board members avoided eye contact with Dr. Chen, the way conversations would stop when she entered a room, the way Richard Morse, despite being cleared by police, still pushed aggressively for the sterling biomedical acquisition at every opportunity. But what Marcus noticed most was how isolated Dr. Chen was. She was brilliant and commanding, but she had no real friends among the executive team, no one she could be vulnerable with. Her ex-husband had remarried and moved to California, taking their teenage daughter with him, a custody loss that Dr. Chen clearly hadn't recovered from. She worked 16-hour days and went home to an empty condo. She was lonely, Marcus realized, in the way that powerful people often are. And maybe that's why, 3 weeks into his new position, when Dr. Chen asked Marcus to stay late to review security protocols, and they ended up talking about their kids instead, laughing over shared stories of parent-teacher conferences and eye-rolling teenagers, Marcus found himself seeing her not as the CEO, but as Vivian, a real person, someone who'd lost as much as she'd gained, someone who was scared but trying not to show it, someone he was starting to care about in ways that had nothing to do with his job. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source. Marcus's son Jordan was a computer whiz, always tinkering with code and systems, and one evening at dinner, Marcus had mentioned in passing the frustration about the mysterious server who'd bypassed security systems so easily. Jordan had asked questions, curious about the technical details, and Marcus had shared what he knew from the security reports. 2 days later, Jordan had called Marcus at work, excited. "Dad, I think I found something. Can I talk to Dr. Chen?" Marcus had been skeptical, but he'd asked Vivian, who'd been intrigued enough to take the call on speakerphone. "Dr. Chen," Jordan had said, his 12-year-old voice professional beyond his years, "my dad said the guy bypassed your badge system on the service entrance. But badge systems keep logs even when they're bypassed, right? Like ghost logs?" "Ghost logs?" Vivian had asked. "Yeah, when someone uses a cloned badge or a hack to open a door, it might not show a name, but it shows the access event. A blip in the system at the exact time. I was reading about it on some security forums." Vivian had gone very still. Then, she'd called her head of IT and asked a question that Jordan had prompted. Were there any unexplained access events? Any system anomalies at the service entrance on the night of the gala? It took the IT team 6 hours of digging through raw log files, but they found it. At 8:34 p.m., the same minute, the mysterious server appeared on camera. There was a badge access event at the service entrance. No name attached, but the system had logged a badge number, 4782. That badge number belonged to Dr. Martin Reeves. The police were called back. With this new evidence, they got a warrant for Reeves's digital devices, and what they found was damning. Emails to a dark web service that specialized in discrete personnel solutions, Bitcoin transactions matching the timing of those emails, and most incredibly, a burner phone in Reeves's home safe with a single contact, a number that, when traced, led to a man named Victor Novak, a former pharmaceutical sales rep who'd been fired from Sterling Biomedical 2 years ago for ethics violations. Victor Novak matched the description of the mysterious server perfectly. The arrests happened fast after that. Reeves was charged with attempted murder and conspiracy. Novak was tracked down in Baltimore and arrested trying to board a flight to Prague. Under interrogation, Novak gave up everything. Reeves had hired him to poison Dr. Chen, offering $50,000 and a promise of a position in the new company leadership once Sterling's acquisition went through. The plan had been simple: kill Vivian at a public event but make it look like a heart attack or stroke, something plausible for a high-stress executive. The aconitine would have been undetectable without specific testing, which wouldn't have been ordered for a sudden death. At a social event, Reeves would express shock and sadness, would step in as interim leader, would push the board to accept Sterling's offer as a stabilizing move. He'd have gotten his CEO position, his vindication, and his revenge all at once. If not for a janitor who'd been paying attention, it would have worked perfectly. The media coverage was intense. Janitor saves CEO from poisoning made national headlines. Marcus's face was on the news, his story told and retold. Journalists camped outside his house hoping for interviews. Titan Pharmaceuticals stock actually went up on the positive publicity, and Marcus found himself deeply uncomfortable with the attention, wanting only to get back to normal. But normal had changed. Vivian had offered to let him return to his custodial position if he preferred, but Marcus found he didn't want to. He liked his new job, liked learning about the business, liked feeling like his mind was being challenged. He liked working closely with Vivian if he was being honest. Liked the way she asked his opinion on things, valued his perspective. Liked the way she laughed at his jokes, and the way her face softened when she talked about her daughter. He was developing feelings he knew were inappropriate given their professional relationship, but he couldn't seem to stop them. It was Vivian who addressed it first. 2 months after Reeves and Novak's arrests, on a Friday evening when they were the last ones in the office reviewing the week's security reports. She'd set down her pen and looked at Marcus seriously. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course," Marcus had said. "Why haven't you gone back to your evening shift? I know you prefer that schedule because of Jordan. I told you the special assistant position was temporary if you wanted it to be. But you've stayed. Why?" Marcus had considered lying, making up something about the money or the opportunity, but Vivian had been nothing but honest with him, and she deserved the same. "Because I like working with you," he'd said quietly. "I like being part of your day. I like feeling like I matter, like what I think and notice is valued. And..." He'd hesitated, then pushed forward. "I like you, Vivian, as a person, more than I probably should, given that you're my boss." Vivian had been quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she'd smiled, soft and genuine. "I like you too, Marcus, more than I should. You make me laugh, you make me feel safe. You see me as a human being instead of a position or a stepping stone. Do you know how rare that is?" "So what do we do about it?" Marcus had asked. "We're honest about it," Vivian had said. "And we're careful. There are power dynamics we have to navigate, HR policies, potential accusations of favoritism or impropriety. But Marcus, I'm 52 years old, and I've spent the last 3 years married to this company with no life outside of work. I almost died 2 months ago, and it made me realize how much time I've wasted being afraid to want things for myself. I'm not going to waste more time pretending I don't have feelings for you." "What are you saying?" Marcus had asked, his heart pounding. "I'm saying let's have dinner. Not as CEO and assistant, just as Vivian and Marcus. And we'll figure out the rest as we go." They'd had dinner that night at a quiet restaurant in a neighborhood where neither of them was likely to be recognized. They'd talked for 3 hours, about their families and their fears and their dreams for their kids. Vivian had told him about the pain of losing custody of her daughter when her marriage fell apart, how she'd thrown herself into work to avoid feeling that loss. Marcus had told her about watching Shanice die slowly, about the helplessness of not being able to save her. They'd shared their wounds and found comfort in being understood. And when Marcus had driven Vivian home and walked her to her door, she'd kissed him, soft and tentative, a question. Marcus had kissed her back, sure and certain, an answer. Over the next 4 months, they dated carefully and privately. Marcus moved back to an evening shift in facilities but stayed on as Vivian's security consultant, attending key meetings and events but giving them both some professional distance. Vivian set up protocols with HR to ensure complete transparency about their relationship and to prevent any appearance of favoritism in Marcus's compensation or treatment. They introduced their kids to each other, Jordan and Vivian's daughter Rebecca, bonding over their shared love of technology and their shared embarrassment at their parents' obvious affection. And slowly, carefully, Marcus and Vivian built something real. They navigated the complications of different backgrounds and different social circles. Vivian's wealthy friends and country club world where Marcus sometimes felt out of place, but where Vivian made clear she'd walk away from anyone who made him uncomfortable. Marcus's neighborhood and family cookouts where Vivian was welcomed warmly. Once people saw how happy she made him. They argued about small things and learned to compromise. They supported each other through hard days and celebrated victories together. And 10 months after Marcus had shouted across a ballroom to save Vivian's life, he asked her to marry him. He did it simply, in the small garden, behind his row house with Jordan and Rebecca watching and grinning because they'd helped him plan it. "Vivian Chen," Marcus said, kneeling on the grass with a ring he'd saved for months to buy. "You've changed my life in ways I never imagined. You've shown me that courage isn't about never being afraid, it's about acting despite fear. You've given me opportunities I never dreamed of. You've made me believe I deserve respect and consideration. And you've loved my son like he's your own. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Vivian said, crying and laughing. "Yes, absolutely yes." They were married 4 months later in a ceremony that blended corporate Philadelphia and working-class West Philly in ways that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did perfectly. Vivian's board members mingled with Marcus's cousins. The reception featured both string quartet classical music and Philly soul, and when they exchanged vows, they spoke honestly about the journey that had brought them together. "Marcus," Vivian said, her voice strong and clear, "you saved my life twice, once by shouting a warning when you could have stayed silent, and once by showing me that I didn't have to be alone, that someone could see all of me, the CEO and the mother and the woman, and love all of it equally. You've taught me humility and courage. You've given me a family again, and you've reminded me every day that the most important things in life aren't achievements or acquisitions. They're the people we choose to love and the lives we choose to build together." Then Marcus spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "Vivian, when I shouted that warning, I was just trying to protect someone I saw in danger. I never imagined it would lead here, to this moment, to a future I couldn't have dreamed of. You've shown me that. Growth is always possible. That change can happen at any age. That bridges can be built across any divide if people are willing to try. You've made me braver and wiser. You've given Jordan opportunities he never would have had. And you've loved me not in spite of where I come from, but as if it's simply part of who I am, no more or less important than any other part. I promise to always speak up when something's wrong, to always watch your back, and to always love you with everything I am." When they were pronounced married and kissed while their blended families cheered, Marcus felt a completeness he hadn't known since Shanice died. This was home. This was family. This was the future he'd saved when he'd shouted across that ballroom months ago. The years that followed proved that the best decisions are often the ones that look reckless in the moment. Marcus eventually became Titan's VP of Operations and Safety, revolutionizing the company's approach to workplace culture and employee welfare. Vivian continued to lead with vision, growing Titan into one of the most respected pharmaceutical companies in the country. Jordan and Rebecca became inseparable, both eventually studying computer science and starting their own cybersecurity firm together. And Marcus and Vivian built a life that honored both where they'd come from and where they'd chosen to go together, proving that love could grow from crisis, that courage could change everything, and that the most unlikely partnerships could become the strongest foundations. If this story reminded you that speaking up matters, that one voice can change everything, that courage comes in many forms, and that love can grow in the most unexpected places, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because every week we bring you stories that prove that bravery, honesty, and compassion can triumph over fear, conspiracy, and injustice. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to shout a warning when everyone else stays silent. One person brave enough to trust their instincts. One person strong enough to bridge divides and build something beautiful from crisis. And sometimes that one choice creates not just survival, but transformation, not just safety, but love, not just a happy ending, but a whole new beginning built on truth, courage, and the revolutionary idea that every human being deserves to be seen, heard, and valued.